Hi everyone, it's Laura from Three Kittens Needle Arts. Today I'm going to be showing you how to weave in your ends as you go in knitting. This is a great technique to learn because, especially if you're doing something like a lot of stripes like I have in this little swatch here, you don't want to have to weave in a bunch of ends at the end. I mean, you're always going to have to weave in like the beginning, your tail at your cast on and stuff, but it's nice if you can look at the back of the swatch and see that, oh my gosh, there are no ends to weave in. These little things are already woven in and I can just snip them off and I'm done. So no threading your tail through a darning needle and weaving it in. So today I'm going to show you how to do this in stockinette from the front of your work or the knit side, also from the back of your work, the purl side. I am also going, that's how to, that will be how to start a new color. Then after I do those two, I'll show you how to get rid of an old color. And then I'll show you how to do both at the same time, adding a new color and getting rid of an old color at the same time. So let's get started. I am going to add this blue yarn to my swatch here. So the first thing you're going to do is pick up the tail of your new yarn and put it underneath the working yarn of your old yarn and hold on. I just put it over the top of my needle and just hold on to it. Okay, so you're going to pick up the new yarn and knit a stitch, and we are not going to worry about the old working yarn at this point. As a matter of fact, I think I'm just going to go ahead and snip it off. That would be a tail that we would have to weave in later. All right, so you've got your first stitch knit. I've already inserted my needle into the second stitch. You're going to take the tail of the new yarn and put it over your right hand needle. So over the top of the right hand needle. You can either do it here or it can be here. I'm going to do it here because I'm using my left hand to do it. And then you're just going to knit your stitch and pull it through. And then you want to make sure for your next stitch that, and let me just put my needle into the next stitch. You're going to want to make sure that the tail is over the working yarn and down and in the back. And usually I try to hold it with one of my fingers on the back so it doesn't kind of pop up, and then knit your stitch and pull it through. The next stitch you have to go bring that tail up again. So do it on this side this time, knit my stitch, pull it through, and then you go down and over the top of that working yarn again and knit. So up over the right hand needle, knit, down over the working yarn, knit, up over the right hand needle, knit, down over the working yarn, knit, and you're just going to keep doing that. I recommend that you do it for at least 2 inches. So in this yarn, which is Blue Sky Fibers wool stock, it's a worsted weight, about 5 stitches to the inch. That means at least 10 stitches. So up, down, and that's the mantra, right? Up, down. I will say that I'm going to stop there because my tail is getting a little short. I will often do up to 20 stitches. It really depends on the yarn and you know, the weight of the yarn and the stickiness of the yarn. 100% wool yarn like this is going to stick really well if you were using a cotton yarn. And I don't always do this with cotton yarns because what I find is that cotton and cellulose fiber yarns, sometimes you will get a bump when you're when you've done it. when you've woven in as you go, and I find it is better to just weave in the ends at the end by putting the tail on a darning needle and weaving it in. You need to practice, test your on your swatch that you're making for whatever your garment or item you're making. Do a gauge swatch and try it out. See if this method works well for that yarn. But in general, with wool yarns and wool blend yarns, I have never had an issue with it. So I've woven in the end of that, the tail of the new blue yarn. It's all there. If often on the next, when I flip it over, I will look to see if this first stitch has gotten a little loose, because sometimes it does. And then to tighten it, you just pull this and it will tighten it up right there. All right, so that's how you do it on a knit row. And let me get back to well, I guess we could just do it right here. I was gonna knit a couple more rows, but instead we'll just start a new color right here. Let's start with a dark blue. And again, so we're on the purl side now. Again, you're going to take your new yarn and you're going to take the tail underneath your old yarn, which is right here. And you're going to hold the tail on the top of the needle, of your left-hand needle. Oops, wrong color. And then go ahead and pick up the new color and purl a stitch. Then you're going to take the tail and go up and over the top of the right-hand needle. It's the same process as we used on the knit side, so up and over the right-hand needle and purl your stitch. And then you're going to take the yarn down and over the working yarn. Here's the working yarn, and taking the tail over and down from that and purl your stitch. Then you're going to go up and over the right-hand needle and purl, and then down and over the working yarn and purl. And you just keep doing that, up and over the right-hand needle, purl, down and over the working yarn, if I can find that tail, and purl, up and over the right-hand needle, and purl, down and over the working yarn and purl. I'll do a couple more, up and over the right-hand needle and purl, and down and over the working yarn and purl. Basically, you are locking your tail into your fabric with your working yarn. I'll do one more. Up and over the right-hand needle and purl, and then down and over the working yarn and purl. And I'm just going to go to the end. All right, so you can see I've got here's the tail, and it's all in there. Again, if I needed to tighten this up, I could pull it tighter, but it looks like that stitch is pretty good there. And then I can just snip close to the fabric. I don't typically go right up against the fabric, but close. So that's how you do it on the purl side. Now, and let me get rid of this because we're not using that one again. So now if we wanted to, I should show you how to start, when you're starting a new color and you want to get rid of the old color, it's the same process. So now we're going to start the green. And I'm not going to worry about weaving in the green tail as we go, because right now what we'd like to do is get rid of the blue. So again, the very first stitch is just a knit stitch with a new color. And then I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to hold it in my left hand. You don't have to do this. You can do it with your right hand. I just find it easier with my left hand. I also do two-color work holding one yarn in my left hand and one in my right hand. So that's how I'm going to start. You're going to go over the top of the right hand needle and knit, and then down over the top of the working yarn and knit, up over the top of the right hand needle and knit, down over the top of the working yarn and knit. If I was not holding it with my left hand, it would look like this. Up over the top of the right hand needle, knit, and then down over the top of the working yarn and knit. Up over the top of the right hand needle and knit. And you'll notice that it automatically goes down over the top of the working yarn when you pull your needle out. So up and over the top of the right hand needle and knit, and then when I pull my stitch through, the yarn is actually in the right place for the next one. If I was putting it over the top of the right hand needle on this side of the left hand needle, that would not be the case. I would have to physically lift it and put it down over the top of the working yarn. You know, either way is fine. As long as you're doing that up and down motion, it doesn't really matter. So let's look at this on the back side, and you will see that I've woven in the blue end, and again I'm tightening it up if I need to down at the end, and then I can snip it, and we got rid of the old yarn. Okay, now before we I show you how to do both of them at the same time, I'm going to get back to a right side row, so give me a moment. While I'm doing this, I will say that this is sometimes a hard skill to get down, so I would suggest trying it out on swatches, get several colors of yarn. It doesn't have to be the same brand of yarn like I'm doing here. I've got a little rough patch on my knitting needle, so my yarn keeps getting stuck. But try it out with swatches. Try it with different types of yarns. You know, try it with cotton, like I mentioned before that I don't normally do this with cotton. Try it out and see why. I find that there's a lump there. Maybe that's not going to be the case for you. Try it out with slippery yarns. With wool yarns, it's going to stay in better, but superwash wool, maybe not so much. So maybe you'll need to do more stitches of weaving in before you try to cut your yarn. It's important to practice before you start a garment or a shawl or whatever with, and you're planning on using this weaving in technique, practice it on a little swatch before you try. Okay, so now we're going, let's start this blue yarn, and we're going to weave in the tail of the blue yarn and get rid of the green yarn at the same time. So again, you're going to start with bringing your new yarn underneath the old yarn and knitting that first stitch. Then the next stitch is just like we did previously, beginning a new yarn. Actually, I want this tail a little bit longer. Okay, so on the next stitch, you're going to insert your needle as if to knit, and you're going to take the tail up and over the left-hand needle and knit. And then on the next one, you're going to do that with the green yarn. You're going to let the blue yarn hanging back over the top of the working yarn. Take your, try not to get the tail because I want to weave in the actual end. Take your green yarn and put it up and over the left-hand needle. So you've got the blue one hanging down in the back, you've got the green one up and over, and then you're going to knit and pull it through. Then you want the green one hanging down and back, and the light blue one coming up and over. Sorry, I've got some ends here that are getting in the way. And then you're going to knit. And you're going to continue doing this. You're going to continue doing, alternating them. So the blue one goes over the top of the working yarn, and the green one comes up and over the needle and knit. And then switch them. Green one goes down, blue one goes up. Blue one goes down, green one comes up. Oops. You have to be careful that, so that blue tail wanted to come up with the yarn, so I'm holding it now and back underneath one of my fingers. Green one goes down, blue one comes up. Blue one goes down, green one comes up. Green one goes down, blue one comes up. I like to hold them both in my left hand, so this is what it would look like if you were doing that. You can see that the blue one is over the working yarn, so you know that the green one needs to go up. So I just did that. Now the green one is over the working yarn right there, so the blue one needs to come up. Blue one down, green one up. Green one down. The blue one's going to need to come up. I'm going to have to let go and do it the slow-mo way because the blue one's getting short enough that it's hard to not do that. Again, I want to always, I'm not sure if I said this or not, but I want to always end with the tail being down over the working yarn. And I'm going to bring my green one up. This is the last one I'm going to do with the blue knit. And then, because I always want to end with my end being trapped pointing downwards, I'm going to do one more with the green yarn. And then I'm going to go to the end and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. All right. So here you go. So I got a lot of ends right rows, one row after another here, but so here's your blue one, here's your green one, and they're nice and neat. I can trim them both off. I'm going to trim this one a little bit shorter because it's kind of in the way. I think I stopped that so that it was pointing up instead of down, unlike I said that I like to have them all pointing down. I did the same thing with this one. In general, I like to have them pointing down so that they're all kind of going the same direction. All right, and this is what it looks like on the front. I don't see any see-through on the front. I think it looks good, and that's the technique. I hope you use this, practice it, and you will get better at it, and it will save you a ton of time. Enjoy.